Temperatures are dropping well below zero tonight, and we've had some beautiful snow up on the mountain. At the moment it's more mist than anything else, but I am expecting some really cold weather. So it begs the question, how do you keep a long-term bug out or survival tent warm during cold temperatures? Can you use fire, or is there something else that you should do? Can you have a hot shower, and how do you cook your food if it is really cold outside? I'm going to share my best tips for keeping your base camp warm using a wood stove and some other methods. I'm Clarice, welcome to the Live Ready channel. I'm camped out in the matroosberg at the moment, and I think first things first, whenever it's cold, make fire, generate some heat. It really is important for us to be able to regulate our body temperature. Hypothermia actually can set in at temperatures as high as 10 to 15 degrees, and it kind of depends on wind chill factor and whether you're wet or not. As soon as you get wet and there's wind, you lose heat much faster, especially when you're wet through conduction, than what you would otherwise do. So a layering system that wicks moisture away from your skin is super important, but also the heat that you get from the outside and being able to shelter yourself from the elements in general is really important. So first things first, build a shelter of some sort. I have got my long-term bug out and survival camp up here. This is a Tenco Sahara Junior tent. It's quite a robust tent, but it's also a huge space that I need to heat. So me making fire just out here is not going to heat my tent on the inside, which is why I've got a wood stove, and that is going to be the star of the show in this video. But we'll see how we do throughout the night. You can be the judge. Did I stay warm enough or not? All right, let's start a fire out here for cooking and start a fire inside for warming the tent. Right, so first things first, making a cooking fire outside. There you go, no fuss. One fire started. Now for the next one. Now, if you didn't believe me when I said that I put a wood stove in my tent, this is it right here. So this is a LINESLIFE wood stove. I basically got it off of Amazon. You don't really get these in South Africa. I suppose we don't really have that cold of a climate, but they're so useful. I mean, you can even use this in your house. And I have actually had to put a stove jack into the fly sheet of my tent here in order to be able to run the stove in here. But basically, just like any other fireplace, you stick some blitz in here, put a couple of logs in. It actually fits about 4 normal size logs. So not that bad at all. I'm actually even going to use this tiny piece of blitz from here. Don't drop anything. Put it in there. Easy does it. And just stack some wood around it. Super easy. Now with this wood stove, I should be able to raise the temperature in here by at least 5 degrees. This is quite a big tent. It is 4.5 by 2.9 meters. So really quite a big space to warm. It's not sealed off at the top. I have sealed it off at the bottom. But the tent in itself can be enclosed completely. So let's get this started. What's really nice about these wood stoves, if you don't kill the fire, is that because this entire chimney pipe heats up, you get so much heat radiating from it. Of course, I do have to go around closing off all the windows in here, because at the moment I'm just going to lose all the heat to the outside. But yeah, that should do it. Gonna give those guys a couple minutes to get going, and then we should have fire in here quite soon. Neat, isn't it? I brought along a little weather station, and it's currently reading 4.5 degrees, actually 4.8 degrees indoors now, and 4.6 degrees outdoors. This is an ambient weather station. So this is the probe for inside, and then I've got a probe that's sitting by the shower on the outside, and that should warn you if you don't want to go shower in the cold. You check the temperature here and you go, no, way too cold. Anyways, so I've got the probe sitting on the outside by the shower and this one here. So let's see whether we can make a difference to the inside temperature of this tent just using the wood stove. We'll have to see. So this is where I mounted the outside probe right here by the shower. It really doesn't actually mean a whole lot to me. 39.6 degrees Fahrenheit and 76% RH. I really should look up what that means. So this is an ambient weather station. They're really cool because you can connect it to Weather Underground, which is like sort of similar to Wind Guru's network of private weather stations. And they all update together and you get like a more accurate reading or weather forecast. But at the moment it's just telling us what the temperature is, because that's what we're interested in. Want to see whether we can warm the tent up. Just after lighting the fire in the wood stove on the inside of the tent, the temperature from the inside already read 1 degree more. Obviously the temperature probe is right by the wood stove, but it goes to show you what a difference a fire inside a tent can actually make to the temperature on the inside. Yeah, so let's see how we go. I think we're in for an interesting experiment. Now, it's quite a commitment actually putting a stove jack into your tent. The reason why is because you've got to cut a hole in your tent in order to fit it in. And I actually pitched the tent in the backyard, and at one point the neighbor comes and hangs over the wall and he goes, "Clarice, what are you doing? You've got me. I have no idea what you're up to." I see a blade come through the fly sheet, and then you're up there with the socket tool and like, anyway, it's quite a story actually putting a stove jack in. So I bought the stove jack off of Amazon as well. I'm really not sure what it's called. If you're looking for one, I'll post the link in the description to this video. Speaking of links, if you're enjoying this video and you want to see more, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, leave a comment before you go. I've also got a Patreon page that you can join. It helps me to continue making videos such as this one, and it gives you access to the Live Ready Discord server. If you're looking for a community of like-minded people to chat to or to ask questions or to run ideas by, that's going to be the place to do it. I noticed my fire over here in the wood stove isn't doing so great. There is a flame, but it seems to be choking a little bit. This is the vent over here, the flue vent. So you basically just turn it so that it's completely open. This is completely shut, and this is completely open. You can tell also by the amount of smoke that comes out that it is actually getting a bit more oxygen. Then it also has an inlet over here where I can adjust if it will work. Can get my fire going in here. Now obviously everything is going to smell like smoke in here, which is not ideal, and of course you want to be careful if you are going to make fire on the inside of your tent, that you don't end up accumulating so much carbon monoxide that you end up killing yourself. So you do need some ventilation in here. Like I said, this front part of the tent is actually not sealed off. The entire top is just a fly sheet that basically fits over what is actually an open tent. So all of this at the top here is open and there's a lot of ventilation. So water is actually a great way to warm yourself, both in taking a hot shower or being able to drink warm water. The other thing you can do is to make a hot water bottle, and you don't necessarily need the rubbery kind for it. You can actually just use whatever bottle or container you've got on hand. Just be careful to select one that's not going to break, especially if you're going to put it in the bed. Hot water burns are actually really, really bad. You really want to avoid doing that. But if you have something like an aluminium canteen that you can fill up with some warm water and you can put that in your bed, then by all means do that. One thing you do want to avoid though is getting wet yourself. This water is absolutely frigid, and it's basically all the snow that's melting at the top of the mountain that's running down here. So if you do get wet, take off anything that's wet as fast as possible, even if it feels counterintuitive because you're taking off, say, a jacket or an outer waterproof layer. take it off, because you're going to lose heat through conduction so quickly by wearing that wet item. So you really want to try and stay dry as far as possible. So I noticed that my wood is wet, which is why I'm struggling to keep a fire going. So I'm just using my grill at the moment to dry out some of the wood, so that I've got enough to use both inside and outside. I still need to cook dinner on here. Ideally, you don't want to have to struggle to keep a fire going. So yeah, anyway, wet wood, not ideal, but it's because we've had so much rain and this wood was standing outside. So I suppose that's what you get for going camping in the wet weather. So I was just thinking, to really make this fair, because I mean, the weather station here is reading 13 degrees here. To be completely fair, the weather station is right by the wood stove, so it is actually going to give me quite a warm reading. If I had to unplug it and move it in here to where I'm going to sleep tonight, be interesting to see how the temperature changes and whether this heat from the wood stove actually gets transferred in here. I've still got the big door open for the tent here, and there is quite a bit of cold air blowing in, so I suppose that also makes a difference. And as soon as I completely close the tent off, well, I say completely, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to get a whole lot more heat from this wood stove, especially from the stovepipe. It's actually gone red. And I also managed to open this little vent at the bottom here. Just takes a bit of tugging. I will probably make myself some hot water for a shower, but sleeping system that I have for cold weather sleeping, I have a First Ascent icebreaker sleeping bag, and even though my bed looks pretty much like a normal bed, there is actually a sleeping bag under there. So a First Ascent icebreaker sleeping bag with a First Ascent thermal liner, which adds about 15 degrees. And if I remember correctly, I think the comfort rating for the icebreaker sleeping bag is -3. So yeah, so it's really for cold climates, and then adding a thermal liner to that adds another 15 degrees. So I should be perfectly warm in that sleeping bag with the thermal liner. And then I've got plenty of blankets if I do get cold. The wind is picking up, so time to get cooking on the fire outside, put it out, close up this place, and start to get warm in here. Every time I want to buy a Dutch oven, I'm like, no man, I manage fine with this pot, but I tell you, to try and balance embers on the top there is not a joke. But I've had lots of practice. Oh, come on. Is it nice, Junie? So I also realized that putting the fridge next to the wood stove is probably not ideal. You're trying to heat something and you're trying to cool something all on one table. However, judging by what the weather station said, 13 degrees ambient temperature for a fridge, not that bad. This is a Dometic fridge. It's quite happy to sit there. I don't actually think that it's going to make a huge difference having it next to the wood stove. But yeah, ideally you don't want the two exactly right next to one another. I just think that they work really well on this table. So the result of having had the wood stove on in the enclosed tent, because I've now closed off the door, probably for the past hour or so, is that it is now 13.8 degrees inside. That's quite a big difference, you know. That's a proper 12-degree difference just from having had the wood stove on in here in an enclosed space for an hour. So I reckon wood stove for the win. I did, however, witness something really scary just a minute ago. The wind blew outside. It must have blown through the chimney, and some huge flames were emitted from the front of the wood stove. Fire hazard much. So definitely you want to keep anything flammable away from the wood stove. I did plumb the chimney in far enough that it wouldn't make a difference. Nothing's going to get set alight, but it probably is a good idea to bring all of my fire extinguishers that I keep in my vehicle into the tent right now. So I will do that. And then yeah, I have been warming water on the fire pit on the outside. I'm going to take a shower. I learned a couple things today. Firstly, if you want to warm the room or the tent up really quickly, lift the lid off of the wood stove. You go through wood a whole lot faster. Obviously there's a lot more oxygen going in there, so you burn through the wood a lot faster. But it is really effective at heating up the room. And secondly, that the flames can actually come out of the wood stove. Hello, kitty. Other things I learned is that we make so many plans, and I know the Bible tells us man makes plans, but it's God's plan that prevails. And sometimes we just have to accept that our plans are not the best plans. So where the doors open, sort of just go through those and trust that God has the best plan for you in place. Otherwise we try to strong arm our way through life, and it's really just exhausting when things can work out so smoothly, whether it be the weather or your holiday or a work issue or whatever it is that you're working through. Just trust God. Let Him sort it out. Despite how well the wood stove is working, I did as backup bring an electric blanket. I did plug it into the EcoFlow. So there is a good reason why I have 2 solar panels during the day. So have a look, see? It's only 54 watts. It's not that bad at all. So I can actually run the electric blanket quite efficiently off of the EcoFlow. And it says it will last 12 hours. It's not bad in snowy conditions. Just having a backup. So I think that concludes my day. I am now exhausted. I did get up at 3:25 this morning to be here. So I think Jeannie and I are going to go to bed. Hey, now? And we're not going to get up early in the morning. But we'll see you then. So the results are in, and I actually am having such a nice warm day today. I don't think the snow on the mountain is even going to last past 12 p.m. And it was a really cold night. I mean, it got to about -4.5 degrees. I think the coldest was about 4 or 5 o'clock this morning. With the wood stove going all night, I managed to keep the temperature inside between 10 and 12 degrees warmer on average than outside. And I woke up to a beautiful frozen world this morning. It's quite spectacular to see everything frozen with little bits of ice on it. So between the wood stove and the fire pit last night, I managed to boil enough water for myself to have a decent shower, even though it was like 1 degree outside. So this is Frontrunner's spare wheel bride grid. It just fits on the back of my spare wheel. It's really cool. I like it because I can actually just, even if I don't have a fire going, just store all my pots and pans on there, or just leave something with some water in it and then just always have hot water. But it's also so big that I managed to take like every container that could go on a fire and just fill it up with water and put it on something hot, and made enough hot water. Anyway, what I can say is the wood stove is really worthwhile. I mean, a 10-degree difference in indoor versus outdoor temperature, especially in a big tent such as this, it really is worthwhile having something like that inside. But I think what really saved my butt last night and what really kept me happy was the electric blanket. Even though the wood stove is really great and it really makes a big difference, I still cranked the electric blanket up. Especially at 5 o'clock this morning. It was so cold, it was like -4 degrees. So I just turned the electric blanket all the way up, and I think at the end of the day, all of these things combined are what make being in the outdoors in cold climate really comfortable. So they're all different elements that you can consider in order to keep yourself warm, and you'll just have to choose what works for you. So if you've liked this video, remember to hit like and subscribe before you head off. Drop a comment, let me know what your suggestions are for staying warm in a cold climate if you're out in the bush. And until the next time, live ready.